Hello and welcome to the Business of Story. I'm your host, Park Howell, and during these uncertain times, I want you to know that I and Gavin Hammer, founder of Sendable, our sponsor, are here to help you in any way we can. In fact, later in the show, you will learn how you can use the Sendable Starter Plan for free to help you connect with your audiences while we're all doing our part to stay apart in an effort to quell this pandemic. Now, on today's show, you'll hear from Microsoft's inimitable storyteller and global head of internships, Miri Rodriguez, on how she and her team are not only coping through COVID-19, but excelling in their work. Plus, Chicago-based investment advisor Robert DiMeo, one of the truly great purpose-driven people in finance, is here to share how they remain focused during this chaos and what may be ahead for the financial markets.
I thought it was just a stupid picture of a pig in the ocean. But after hearing that story, I had to have it. Now I wasn't just buying a picture, I was buying a story. Story literally made the picture worth more money to me.
That's what businesses are about. People buy brands, people buy stories much more than anything else.
I work with a lot of big enterprise companies, but let's just say I always tell folks, drop the PowerPoint, close your laptops, start with your story.
If you want people to get engaged and you want people to act, you have to tell them an emotionally powerful story. That's with great characters, it's with uncertain outcomes, and it's with high stakes and drama.
All business strategy is a story.
I reached out to my good friend Miri Rodriguez of Microsoft, who is kind of experiencing it was a best of times, worst of times kind of scenario. It may be one of the best of times in her life because she just launched her new book, Brand Storytelling, Put Customers at the Heart of Your Brand Story, which is a major achievement. But it's coming out in what we all know are the worst of times. Yet this hasn't dampened her spirits, but deepened her resolve to help people in this time of need. So let's jump into my chat with Miri, and I promise you'll feel better as her energy is infectious. Oh, wait, poor choice of words. Her energy is inspiring. Hello, Miri, you there? Hello.
Hi, I am so sorry. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Thank you for being patient with me. I'm good. Thank you. I had a meeting with Chile and they said the time zone and I didn't realize that they were a half hour off. So I was thinking it was 8:30 their time, but it was actually 9 o'clock. So I double booked. I was like, oh no. So I'm so thankful you were able to be flexible. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. Yeah, we're down here in Phoenix. We don't have it quite as bad as you have it up there in Seattle, but just finding ways to work around it and be productive.
Yeah, I know it's really tough here. Honestly, it's gotten every day. It's a little bit more of a sanction on public things. I think the most difficult one for me is to close the state parks, which this place is so beautiful and so much to do here, and not a lot of people. Honestly, it's so big that you can just kind of social distance but still be out there. And I was like, oh no, we can't even go out there. So it's feeling a little claustrophobic.
Yeah. Now, you are typically down in the Redmond campus of Microsoft, but I imagine you are holed up at home. Where, out in Edmonds?
I am. I'm actually, no, I moved to Bellevue. So I'm in downtown Bellevue. I'm about, you're familiar with the area, I know. So it's yeah. So I'm in at the Bravern, which is literally like 10 minutes from Redmond campus.
And how long have you been at home then working?
2 weeks, 2.5 weeks.
Oh, okay. So Microsoft really started taking this seriously a few weeks ago then.
Yeah, at the very beginning, even before there were government lockdowns themselves, from leaders, Microsoft began to actually just send a note and say, hey, if you feel like working from home, you can. So that we still had some people go in, but it wasn't mandated at that moment. But they moved very swiftly. Microsoft has done such a great job in prioritizing the health and the well-being of employees from the very beginning. So it's been really nice to see and be a part of that.
Well, and I was happy to see Bill Gates on CNN last night and talking some sense about the pandemic. And what I like so much about him is, of course, he's a brilliant, brilliant individual that has been following and studying pandemics for many years through the Gates Foundation. And he sat there, his hair wasn't on fire. He was just talking, very matter of factly, very, from a very brilliant mind of what he sees happening and, how long we're going to be in for this. But it was very heartening to listen to him. There's some sense being spoken now,
I love that and I don't know if you know that, but he recently, literally like within a month ago, he actually resigned to the board and he wanted to focus on philanthropies. And so it was definitely for him a timely manner, even if there was no foreseeing of what would happen next. But really his heart is to focus on healing the earth in so many different ways with all the things that the foundation does. Him and Melinda are just at the forefront of leading technology for so many areas of, clean water and vaccinations and all of these things. So now I can only imagine how his brain, which never stops, maybe we're going with all of this and his next move into not being more prepared, I guess, for what in the future, what will happen so that we don't have to go through something like this again. I don't know that we can ever stop something like this again from happening, but to be better prepared, I think would be definitely top of mind for him. The way he thinks is definitely at the forefront of how technology can lead these things. And then, you and I see this right now. We're talking and we're connecting, and most people in most industries are having to do that, are having to work around and use technologies that they may not have thought about before to keep business going.
Yeah. Having grown up there, just right around the corner from where you are right now, Microsoft was blossoming around me in high school and college, and I was just a dumb kid, and I had no idea what it was actually going to become. And Bill Gates, I've never really known that much or studied much about him, but I saw the series on Netflix, Bill's Brain, about a month ago, and it gave me a completely new appreciation for the guy and Melinda and their combined brains and what they're doing with the Gates Foundation. That it just blew me away. I mean, talking about a national treasure, that guy's brain is a national treasure. And that's why I like seeing him on places like CNN, talking wisdom and what they know pretty much for sure. And then, of course, what they're guessing at. But I would take his guess over the president's guess any day of the week.
Yeah, it's funny. We did talk about you living here when I first connected with you, and I said where I was living or I was moving to, I think, because we've known each other for a few years now, and the area so well. So it's just funny to me that you're not here, but you know the area so well because you grew up here. And I know you come here a couple times, a year, I think. But it's incredible to see what's been happening in general in this space of technology, of the Microsoft campus in general, as a kind of tech boom. It continues to be. It's really interesting to see. We are on lockdown, but still being, I'm from Florida, right? Like my family is in Florida, and they're telling me, there's no way to find toilet paper. Here we have everything. They're actually stocking every day, and so we are not lacking anything. And the stores are open, like the essential stores. So it's really interesting to me to see the supply and demand, and also the behavior when you're in a tech town. It's I've never been before. Like I said, I lived in Florida most of my life before, I was from Venezuela, then I lived in Florida. So it's a different feel, a different vibe during a crisis, how tech companies are behaving and how employees are behaving, which make up most of the town.
And what do you see the most different with, say, Microsoft and the employees? You say how they're behaving. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I think it's how they're responding in general to this crisis. I hear from my sister and my mom in Florida, people just went insane and bought so many things and stocked up. Nobody asked anybody to do that. It's a psychological thing that we do as humans. It's like, oh, I got to go prepare for something because I don't know what's happening in the next 3 weeks. Here, the behavior really, I think it has a lot to do with how we think about technology for good, AI for good, how we think about the brands and how the brands have a social responsibility, and most of these tech companies are often very involved with social responsibility. And so that is a culture. And as a culture, our behavior immediately thinks, what's next? How do we help? What do we do next? And so again, what we were just starting to talk about is we went in and we started working from home, not as a firm decision, but it was more like, hey, if that's what you want to do, if it makes you feel comfortable, go ahead. And even though we are literally at the epicenter here of everything, of where it started in the U.S., we have not been not stocked up on food, on toiletries. There isn't that mode of there's more of like, hey, it's beyond ourselves. We recognize there's something bigger. And I think technology always often makes us think that way, that the things that we do and how we do them, they impact the world. So we are interconnected. And if I go and I buy 12 rolls of big rolls of toilet paper, that may mean that the next person after me may not have it, and so it's been interesting to see that here.
Compassion in the Pacific Northwest, it sounds like. People
Yes.
actually keeping their heads in
And
place.
empathy, one of my favorite subjects.
Now, did Microsoft, have they communicated out to their staff working from home and given you any sort of tips on how to be the most productive, or do they just pretty much leave it up to everyone's devices?
Oh, no. We have leadership has been in touch. At the beginning, it was every other day, and now it's actually every day. We've put in place many mechanisms of staying connected with our leadership, our LT, and then also trickle down to our own direct reports. So as a manager, we are being, supported from leadership to say, hey, make sure you check in individually with your directs, find out how they're doing. As a community, as a teams or extended group, or a functional group, if you will, doing things from, hey, let's check in every meeting, let's see how we're feeling, let's go around robin and say, how are you feeling today? So we start meetings and we start the days with making sure that we're okay, and if we're not, acknowledging that we're not okay, not only on the physical side but the emotional side, recognizing that this has also brought on extra hours of work, along with there's parents with smaller children and pets. So we are making lighthearted approach to that, and making videos and stories about, being quarantined and what that looks like, and laughing about it. So definitely leadership has taken a really great approach to staying connected. They've become, very, very personal and vulnerable in telling us their stories and how they're dealing with the quarantine and the crisis. And so being very human above all. And of course, business is business, but we can't do business if we're not doing well or feeling well, or at least feeling supported when we're not feeling well. So it's been a really great approach by them.
Do they have an idea, or have they communicated any sort of idea on timing wise on where you might come back, or is they just pretty much leaving it to the leadership there now and watching what happens with the virus?
Yeah, so Microsoft is basically following the ordinance by government officials. So it really depends on what's next and what they define and decide, more than from a Microsoft approach. So it's really tied to what's happening day by day. There are maybe new sanctions or maybe sanctions lifted. It really depends. So what we've seen here is actually there's been more restrictions day over day, and it began first with internationals, people coming in and out, and those travel bans or those restrictions for quarantining if they came into Seattle or out of Seattle. Then it got stricter and stricter, and so now it's actually a mandate to stay home. I think it's through April 7th is the latest I heard. And if anything changes, then we will hear. And if anything, it's different than that, we'll definitely hear from them.
So what are you doing, Miri, that maybe our listeners could do to stay positive and productive working at home? And you've got a couple of kids too. You've got a few little kids that you've got to tend to.
Well, my boys are not kids, which I'm thankful for. They're older. They're 16 and one's turning 18 in a couple of weeks. So they're okay. Yeah, they're actually really good. I think we had hacked the system before anybody did anything. I moved our boys to be mobile, and they do online school because I travel. And so when I decided to, go traveling so much. I wanted them to come with me. So we moved them to online school, and they have been, they're used to doing online. They're used to being home, and they have a very strict schedule that they're following. So to them, it's nothing different. What's different is that mom is home, so we're not in another part of the world, which is really funny. So that's it, not being on planes. But what I'm doing is I'm actually taking time to connect with a lot of people, and I am a connector and I do it all the time, but I am often, checking in quickly. I'm often hurried in my responses, and I'm not doing that right now. What I wanted to do is I wanted to take the extra time that I'm not using to commute or to do whatever that I have in my hands to really have a deep conversation with my tribe, my people. A lot of things have happened which are weird. It's, you start to connect with people you probably haven't before, and I've gotten people checking in with me, which is nice, but you do know and learn in these times of crisis who your tribe is, right? Who your people are. And then dedicating that extra time to them, it's really important. So a lot of FaceTime, which again, I moved from Florida 3 years ago. So I'm already used to the technologies of not connecting, one-on-one. I do have some people here in Seattle, but most of my tribe is remote, and it's international too. So really, really having deeper conversations about life, about health, about what's important in life.
And what has been maybe the biggest surprise for you? So maybe you went into this, as we all did, with a little bit of dread and, oh my goodness, this is totally disrupting my life. I don't know how I'm going to deal with this. But what has been a surprising positive outcome for you?
Yeah, the conversations that have turned deep have taught me so many things about how people are looking at this from a futuristic perspective. So I have spoken to, I spoke to my mentor about 2 days ago, and we checked in, and he was already talking about how technology, this basically accelerates and will accelerate the future of business, the future of, commerce, if you will, the future of education, to turn an entire school system to go digital because of this crisis enables something new that they may have thought about, but probably didn't want to think of implementing immediately. Now they have to, and they have. So this will innately change the way we live on many fronts. But in a futuristic standpoint, I've learned, I was pleasantly surprised to hear the opportunities that will come from this. So I really would like everyone listening to think about that from that perspective. Hey, now that businesses are forced to go digital, the digital transformation has literally accelerated in the last 2 weeks, from government, from public sector, not tech companies who are already at the forefront, but companies that were not thinking about it. Now they have had to think about it and implement it in the last 2 weeks. What does that look like after this crisis? How do I help? How do I integrate into this next step of business continuity, of business future commerce? Where does your brand come in? What does your brand even pivot? The stories have pivoted. We've seen we've seen brands, hotels who are actually opening their rooms to medical personnel. We've seen restaurants, give out free lunches. We've seen MLB, those people that actually build the costumes, or not the costumes. I'm not a sports person, but the uniforms,
the baseball uniforms, yeah.
Baseball, now they're making masks and scrubs. So all of that really just speaks about how empathy is forcing a pivot in goods and services, and how brands are responding and what they can do next. So now we're thinking creatively. Now we are being, new neuropaths are being forged into our brain of like, okay, crisis mode, what's next? So this has been surprising to me in a very pleasant way to see, wow, humans are just incredible creatures. We just not only, survive, we thrive in moments of crisis if we apply the knowledges and we apply the empathy that we need to have to do so.
Yeah. And, you've got your brand new book out that you launched right about the same time as Social Media Marketing World.
Yes.
And so congratulations on that. Brand Storytelling, put customers at the heart of your brand story. So this is some great reading for people as they're sheltering in place and looking for, a way to expand their own thinking around brand storytelling. What was the impetus for your book?
Yeah, thank you for that plug-in. Actually, the book, I brought it to Social Media Marketing World. I had a few copies to give there, which I didn't give you yours. And I was gonna give you
I
yours.
know, I'm going to hold you to it.
I know. It actually doesn't come out in the U.S. until next week, until March 31st. So it's not.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Well, by
not
the time the listeners hear you on this show, it will be out. So perfect.
Yes. And
Yeah.
it's actually #1 new release on Amazon. I found out. I had no idea. That was really cool.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Either people are super bored and don't know what to read next, or it's going to be.
It's a terrific book. And I know you've poured your heart into it working as a storyteller at Microsoft for these past years. And it's really just insightful. What I like about it too is your international perspective, because you teach this not just at Microsoft, but around the world.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
well done on the book.
The heart behind it truly is exactly what you do, Park, and you do it every day, and I admire you for that. It's democratizing storytelling. It's understanding that we all have this innate cognitive ability to connect at the human level, but most of us just don't know how to use that and leverage that at the business level. And so I share my own story and my own methods of what I learned to do this when I was brought into a space in engineering at Microsoft that I had no idea how to connect the stories of AI and data and robots. I mean, I'm not an engineer and I didn't know how to even do that. So that crisis prompted a new model for me. I used design thinking approach and UX design, and I began to prototype stories. So I used the 5 steps of design thinking, and I show how to do that in the book. And really just tell different ways to tell a story. A lot of people will learn and they know what storytelling is as a concept, but then to apply it or implement it as a blueprint for communication 101 or even a culture shift, they just don't know where to start. And so this really helps you to guide. It's a manual that helps you end to end. I also talk about ethics in storytelling, my own reckoning of like, whoa, once you find out how powerful this tool is, you can do everything and you can manipulate in many ways. Should you really do that? I'm being asked. Yeah, I'm being asked these days actually from brands. I'm being consulted on like, hey, Miri, should we post an ad in the middle of this whole, pandemic? It's a great question. It's a great ethical question. And I can't say yes or no. My answer to that is, ask yourself, if you posting an ad, does it go against your core values and what you stand for in society as a brand? Does it look like you're being just want to be profitable out of this whole thing? And that's the kind of thing that I talk about in the book is ethics in storytelling. It's benchmarking your stories. How do you know they're going to land well or not? And what happens if you don't? The villains of the stories. There's just a whole lot there. And so it's exciting. And you're there. So
yeah, thank you. I'm honored to be a part of your book. Really enjoyed it and working with you. Where were you? You were down in South America somewhere doing a training course. And
in
Peru, that's right. We zoomed in and we did a story course about a year and a half ago. And I guess you translated me into Spanish because I don't speak Spanish very well.
I did translate you. Well, you had captions, so your powerful voice still was heard through and you captioned it. But you are so insightful. I am always very very inspired by how you present story. In fact, we met at Social Media Marketing World, and I was on your panel, and it was just to watch the crowd. Just listen to you in such admiration and inspiration of how you deliver these techniques in your space. I was one of them. I was just like, I was mesmerized, and I continue to be. So it's an honor for me to have you in my book and contribute to that piece of inspiring brand stories.
Well, thank you so much, Miri, and thank you for taking the time to be here today. I know you have a ton on your plate, as we all do, but I just wanted my listeners to get reacquainted with you. You were on the show a couple of years ago, and we are all really curious to hear how Microsoft is dealing with this, and of course, how you personally are staying positive and productive at home, doing your thing. So thank you for sharing that with us.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. And I actually will be, I'll be doing a blog myself, probably a vlog, and I'll invite you to mine as well. I think you have so much to share with my audience as well. I'm happy to connect with you every time. Thank you, Park.
I'd love that. And remember to stay happy and healthy out there.
Yes, you too.
Thanks, Miri. Take care.
Thank you.
What'd I tell you? Miri's energy is just truly inspiring. Anyways, before we get to Bob DiMeo, I would like to talk about Sendable and how proud I am of them being a sponsor of the show. And the reason being is Sendable, if you don't know of them, are a powerful social media management platform, and they work with like 3,000 digital agencies around the world to help them with their social media storytelling. But they're doing something extraordinarily special right now, and that is to make their starter plan available to you for free until July 1st, 2020, just to help you get through this crisis and connect with your audiences while we all need to remain apart to help fight this pandemic. Now, if you're interested in doing this, go to sendable.com/COVID-19. I mean, what have you got to lose? But the cost of the subscription you're currently using for a platform that may or may not be working for you. Plus, you have everything to gain. Sendable makes it super easy. I know because we've been using it at the Business of Story now for well over a year. We use it to source content from clients and collaborate closely with them to create a social media strategy built on storytelling principles. We can reliably plan and schedule our content to be automatically published to Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Pinterest, and more. And we get to demonstrate to our clients through its reporting the impact their content is having on their audiences to help grow their businesses, scale their brands, and really rise above the noise. Their in-depth reporting and analytics are incredible. And there's so much, much more. And I got to tell you about my most favorite feature. It's the Smart Posts functionality. Smart Posts makes it incredibly easy to craft social media content and in one step, customize it for each platform, giving you the best chance of driving engagement and getting people to pay attention to your content. And isn't that really what it's all about? So now I pose this to you. While Sendable is offering their starter plan for free, I encourage you, if you have the budget, to purchase your Sendable Traction Plan. As a valued listener right here to the Business of Story, you'll save 30% off their traction plan when you visit sendable.com/park30. That way, you'll be supporting the good people at Sendable so that they can help those who truly need it. You'll not only feel great, but have a great platform to share your stories with the world. Check it out, sendable.com. Now, I am so happy to bring you another friend of mine, a gentleman who I've got to know over the last couple of years, who is a business professional beyond compare, a terrific family man, and a guy whose company is all about helping nonprofits, associations, and regular investors make sense out of the madness of the financial world, in good times and in bad, especially now. His name is Robert DiMeo. You can call him Bob, and he is co-founder of DiMeo, Schneider, and Associates. And we are going to pick up our conversation already in progress. The impact, it's not just Wall Street, and what happened in 2008. It's the health issue and how it's impacted the whole world. And what we're up against. And now it's starting to hit close to home for a lot of us with friends and families that are being affected by this. And it just raises, I guess, that terror level in our minds that much more because of the uncertainty of what's happening out there.
Yeah, that's right. It's, it's almost in some respects a little similar to 9/11 in terms of the financial hit to the markets and so on. But it's very different. Back then, if you recall, the rally cry was, don't let the terrorists beat us, get out, go to movies, go to ballparks. And this is just the opposite. So there's a bit of a somber or eerie component to it.
It really is. Now, we got to know each other about a year and a half ago when I was out in Chicago working with your financial firm, DiMeo, Schneider, and Associates. And you guys have not only a large operation in Chicago, but you've got people, stretched out around the country. How long has it been where you all have been working apart and not in your central office there in Chicago?
Yeah, so Park, this is the beginning of our third week of working from home. And I was starting to mention that, we kind of got our practice a bit at a back in the polar vortex winter of 19. And fortunately, things, can you be exhausted and blessed at the same time? I think so. And that's sort of what it feels like.
Yeah. What are you doing to keep both yourself motivated and moving forward, working from home, as well as your team?
Yeah, so I would say sort of a three-pronged approach, if you will. And we're managing the business, we're trying to play great defense, and then frankly, we just had some discussions. We're trying to usher the offense on the field a little bit as well. And I can go into a little bit more detail on each of those as you like.
Yeah, definitely. Let's go with number one.
Yeah, so managing the business, because you mentioned the health component, we sort of developed 4 guideposts, and we did this prior to sending everyone off, not knowing exactly when we'd see each other again. And the guideposts are these: safety first is number 1, clients next is number 2, be productive is number 3, and then finally stay connected is number 4. And candidly, we've got good, smart, hardworking professionals. I have little doubt that the first 3, will all fall in place as they should. But number 4, that staying connected, I have some concern on that front, not just for my colleagues, but really around the globe, what isolation can do. And people are watching markets and financial circumstances change. So we have been hyper connected through Zoom and Microsoft Teams and other tools and daily briefings and so on. But I sort of think, like other situations, there's the here and now with a flurry. To the extent this extends sometime, how do we make sure we not only continue, but kind of evolve this connectedness?
How have your people taken it? For the most part, were they already using a lot of these online tools, Zoom and so forth, or has it been a bit of a learning curve?
Largely, I would say Microsoft Teams is newer and really welcome, and so on. Zoom had been used by pretty much everyone for some time. We've also introduced we've had 2 Fridays in a row now of the virtual happy hours, where last week was wear your university alumni colors and so on, and bring your favorite beverage. And the week before, there was all sorts of trivia. So we're doing some of that too. And really, I think doing as well as we possibly can, and trying to, for sure, place safety first and client interests high up on the hierarchy.
Yeah. Are you doing the same thing with your clients? Are you doing more Zoom sessions and that kind of thing? Or are you just pretty much doing phone calls to stay connected with them?
Yeah, so we are, this sort of moves into the second part, playing great defense. It really is our time to be there for clients. And our approach is always to set kind of a longer term investment strategy, and to work with the client on risk tolerance and return objectives and special considerations. But this sort of environment and circumstance really tests that. So we have done a lot of written word, research reports and so on. We've done many video updates, market perspective in this environment, and a number of Zoom and similar videos. And then, of course, the phone calls and the personal touch. And in fact, in just a little while, myself and our chief investment officer, we're working towards rebalancing portfolios now because of all of this dislocation. But we sort of are doing a special 5-minute video for all clients with some advice around that.
So that's the defense you're playing, is to help kind of calm the storm a little bit and say, yes, we know there's a lot of uncertainty out there, but we're here for you. We're keeping our eyes on the market and what may be happening in the future, which is really anybody's guess, but just to let them know that you're there for them and helping them usher them through this difficult time.
Yeah, for sure, Park. And the only part I would add to that is almost always it's, hey, let's rebalance. And, we set this, it was a 5 or 10 year strategy, and let's rebalance. These are perhaps buying opportunities and dollar cost averaging. This one's a little bit different because on the economic front, it could be a bit of a game changer. If you take an association, and we have a number of association and other nonprofit clients that relies on a big part of their revenues coming from conferences, you can see that having a big impact. So before we race to the portfolio, we're calling a timeout, and we call it a three levers exercise, organizationally, or even individual investors do this. Before you rebalance the portfolio, what are your inflows? What are your outflows? What's your required return? And do you need to carve something out of the portfolio before we talk about optimizing your allocation?
So then number 3 was playing offense.
Yeah, let's play a little bit of offense, and I want to go about this in a thoughtful manner. But if you think about it here, right there, this is not an environment where university endowments or wealthy families or pension funds are saying, "Gosh, I don't need any investment advice." Right? This is maybe a call for investment advice. Now, we want to be very thoughtful about how we do this. So a lot of what we're doing is very educational in nature, trying to, through these webinars and other communications, just educate prospective clients. And then we're also reaching out to centers of influence, the accountants, the attorneys, the other investment managers and such that refer business to us, so that they know we're here. We can do a lot of analytical work. We can do sort of stress tests of portfolios, even on a complementary basis, not to pitch business today, but just to establish relationships.
Mm-hmm. So the big question, of course, and I think we should put a timestamp on this. We are talking here about noon our time on March 30th, because the show will be airing a little bit after that. What do you see in the market that you feel like you'd like to share with our listeners? What opportunities, if any, are out there for us?
Yeah, so it's interesting. I mean, the valuations have changed dramatically since the beginning of the year, and we did see the longest running bull market and economic expansion in history come to an end, and everything's happening fast, right? It's we saw the quickest bear market decline in history. We saw one of the quickest turnarounds in history and the biggest 3-day up market since 70 plus years ago. And so anyway, I guess we would, if you're going to look at the markets, the hard part about it is this: we won't get an all clear signal until really doctors and scientists give us an all clear signal. And you want this to be short-lived, and I want this to be short-lived, and we all want it to be relatively pain-free or limit the pain, but we truly won't know. So our recommendation is this: we're updating our 10-year capital market assumptions because some things have really changed over the last few years. But if a client, for example, was supposed to be, I'm making this up, 50% in equities and 30% in bonds and 20% in alternatives or whatever it may be, whatever the new target allocation is, we are not racing there in one day. We are actually going to take several swings to get from where the portfolio is today to the new target allocation, fully acknowledging we don't know when the scientists and doctors wave the all green. The markets do look forward and they'll anticipate this, but I really believe everyone wants this to be short and as pain-free as possible, but it's truly unknown by anyone. So taking this sort of staged approach, in our opinion, is very prudent.
The analogy to this, because I have a very, very close, loved one who is going through COVID-19 right now, is you are almost approaching the market the exact same way as you're taking its temperature and watching and kind of managing to see, do the symptoms get worse? Do they get better? Do we need to take more extreme actions? What trial test do we put on it? And it's sort of a metaphor. It clicked in my mind as you were talking about this, is you're kind of taking that same approach to the market because we are in such uncharted territory.
Yeah, I think that's very fair. And I guess the two other things I'd mention super quickly for folks. One is to really strike a balance between the intake and the source of your information and news. I think we've got to control that as best as possible. And I have a strong faith. And I think if I were taking in 11 hours of talking heads and negative news and not praying or reflecting, and so that would be really hard. But whatever it is for someone, whether it's music or exercise or what have you, find that balance. And just like I take in emails consciously, like about 4 times a day, I would say taking in, we have to be aware, but taking in from the right sources and taking it in sort of a balanced approach makes sense. And then the last thing I would say, a little bit of gratitude. If we can just think about, hey, what can I be grateful for here and now? We don't have to think about next week or next year, but here and now, is there something I can be grateful for? And I suspect there is for all of us.
Bob, I'm grateful for this conversation because you've just lifted my spirits as well. Thank you for that.
That's awesome, Park. I'm always great chatting with you.
Yeah, thanks so much. And I trust your family and friends are all doing well out there. I should have asked at the beginning of this, but I'm so caught up, of course, in these interviews. Sorry.
No, I hear you 100%. We're up at the lake house, and my older son and his girlfriend have joined me and my wife, and we've got 4 offices, and we're spaced out, and and we're probably going to bring my younger guy and his girlfriend up soon, and we're again exhausted and blessed is how I would put it.
Well, great. Thank you for taking the time. I know you're busy. I'll let you run, Bob, and I just want to say, remain happy and healthy out there. Appreciate your time.
Thanks so much, Park. Be well.
Take care.
Bye.
There you have it, another check-in from folks from the business of story world. I hope you found this helpful for you today to help maybe balance things out in your life, as crazy as time is right now, and to be positive and productive moving forward. And if you like what you heard on the show today, please share it with someone else, and hopefully we can help raise their spirits and give them some guidance in the process. And of course, if there's anything I can do for you whatsoever here at the Business of Story, please reach out. You can contact me with my email, park@businessofstory.com. I am happy to help in any way, shape, or form I can. I have our new online course up right now that over on Thinkific, so that if you are sitting at home stewing, wondering about your brand story and where your organization is going to go, or where your own personal brand story is going to take you now that we're all living through this tremendous disruption, let me know. I can help. You can visit me over at businessofstory.thinkific.com and start taking and developing and building your brand story right now to help you rise above the noise and be heard in this crazy, noisy world we're in. And also to help you do that is Sendable. They're going to help you do it for free if you like. It's sendable.com/COVID-19. Or if you've got it in your budget to help support them, go to sendable.com/park30 and get 30% off of their traction plan right now. Either way, you can't lose with the good folks over at Sendable. So please join me again next week when we will have another story artist or a handful of thought leaders here for you to help you guide you through this COVID-19 crisis that we're all experiencing. And until then, remember that the most potent story you will ever tell is the story you tell yourself. So make it a great one. Thanks so much for listening.